Good evening. Welcome to Left, Right and Centre. I'm Vishnu Shoma. On the programme tonight, is the government blinking on the farmer laws? An important meeting is on right now between the Home Minister and farmers. This on a day when roads were blocked in some areas, tracks were blocked by farmers on Ab Bharat Bandh. The farmers are clear they want the laws to be repealed. There are, however, indicators that the government may be willing to go some distance by making amendments to the law to protect minimum support prices. What form is this going to take? We don't know that as yet. On the show tonight, Amit Shah calls, farm leaders, will the farmer deadlock come to an end? Well, let's go straight across to Sanket Upadhyay, who's been tracking all of these developments. Are there any indicators of a potential breakthrough?
Well, Vishnu, that's an extremely tough question, and you know that. It's very, very difficult to perhaps guess what really is on the mind of these farm leaders. But let's just take a look at the positions that they've taken. So as far as the government is concerned, we have learned from reliable sources that in this meeting, Amit Shah is going to propose that the centre is largely in agreement with three main demands of the farmers. Demand number one is a guarantee on the MSP. In what form it will come, we do not know, but the government will assure the farmers that we'll give a written guarantee as far as MSP is concerned. Remember, the Bharatiya Kisan Sangh and RSS offshoot has asked for a law guaranteeing MSP. Will the government go down that road? We do not know. So that is assurance number one. Assurance number two will be to bring parity as far as APMC mandis and private mandis is concerned, which is a huge matter of concern because the farmers said that this new law will give undue advantage to private mandis and thus making APMC and then eventually even the MSP redundant. So there could be an assurance to the farmers that this will be an amendment to the existing law. And an important point number three that the farmers raised was on whether they can approach courts, civil courts, to fight battles legally in case they face a problem. According to the original law, they could not go beyond the SDM. The government feels that an amendment can be made where farmers can be given these legal rights. So on these three broad points, perhaps Amit Shah may want to convince the farmers that, look, we are sensitive and we may want to bring about amendments to address your concerns. But the farmer unions, all of them who have gone in as of this moment, have said repeal and nothing less. The laws must go and then they must be reenacted with all the key concerns settled in or hemmed in. So that's where the stalemate is right now.
All right, thanks very much, Sanket, for joining us. It is very much a stalemate. It's really up to the government at this stage to possibly break this because the farmers have now been protesting for 13 days. It's extremely cold on the outskirts of Delhi. They've been there day in and day out. Joining us now, Atishi, the MLA and spokesperson of the Aam Aadmi Party, on a day in which the in which the Aam Aadmi Party actually said that their Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal was not being allowed by the police to exit his home. Maheshender Grewal, spokesperson of the Shiromani Akali Dal, Naresh Sirohi, National Vice President of the BJP Kisan Morcha, Supriya Shinate of the Congress will be with us in a moment. Rajat Sethi joins us, as does Nikhil Dey, the co-convener of the NCP PRI and a social activist, somebody who tracks farmer developments very, very closely. Let me go across to you first. Rajat Sethi, are there any indicators to the best of your understanding that the government may be willing to repeal these laws?
Well, I think what is most essential is that the concerns of the farmers are either addressed by explanation of what is the rationale behind the government's stand or bringing in necessary changes. I think the government cannot be seen as weak and being held hostage by people a section of the society which wants to push their demands through. Both the parties, on one side, the government and the farmers, on the other side, have to come to a common minimum agenda and then resolve those issues. So far, what the farmers have been saying, it is either a yes or a no.
Yes.
And I think that is holding the government hostage, and that is something which I don't think the government is going to agree to. And I think the Union Home Minister has already reached out to them before the next round of meeting, which is scheduled, I think, for tomorrow, and has tried to speak to the leaders of various
yeah, in fact, that unions. Meeting is on right now. Rajat, let's see what finally. Supriya, how is it not fair that if there are amendments which are made to the laws as opposed to repealing the laws themselves and minimum support price is assured in writing in these laws, then the matter is essentially resolved? Because the other issues can be resolved far more easily, perhaps.
You know, quite frankly, Vishnu, we are not against reforms in Indian agriculture. But reforms, are an act of consensus building and consultation. There was zero consultation that happened before this law was brought in. Not a single stakeholder was sat across the table and spoken to, and which is why the farmers are wary. The second thing is the government has been talking from a point of almost being obstinate, sitting on its high horse and saying, we will not do anything, this is the law of the land, this is how it's going to stay. The farmers have dug in their heels and the farmers believe this is not in their interest. So I do not think this is going to expose the government's weakness or any such thing. If you actually ask me, a sensitive government must respond to the demands of the farmers, and the farmers are a very wary lot. I mean, 62 crore farmers across the country are very, very worried about what their future holds and what is going to be their fate and the fate of Indian agriculture when these laws do come into effect, which they practically have after the way it has been passed in the Rajya Sabha. But all I will say is a sensitive government needs to respond to the farmers and not be obstinate.
All right. So absolutely, and I'm sure all governments would agree on that particular issue. But Nikhil, is there not a real concern that the farmer is being left behind while political parties, whether it's the BJP, the Shiromani Akali Dal, the Aam Aadmi Party or the Congress, play out their different political positions? I ask you this because on the one hand, the Congress and the Aam Aadmi Party and the Shiromani Akali Dal have been opposing what the BJP has been saying. But on the other hand, this is a report of the working group on agriculture production, December 2010. All right. And this particular report seems to contradict, for example, what the Congress has been saying. And there are specific points over here where the government has quite clearly said that they want reform to take place. Now, this being the case, I'll just read out one or two of the points. The concept of farmers markets where farmers can freely sell to the consumer directly must be promoted. This is what the UPA earlier on had said. Another example of this, the government must facilitate contract farming and direct marketing, single point levy of market fee says, etc., setting up a special commodity. In other words, opening up. So today they are opposing it, but a few years back they said this is what they essentially wanted. Mr. De.
Yeah, so I'm sorry, my audio dropped briefly. Actually, the truth is that today, if we want, we keep talking about this middle ground. But the fact is that there are 35 farmers organizations there. They've been through a long process over the last few months. Amit Shah is reaching out, is talking to them. Nobody wants to second guess them. But the fact of the matter is that they have to feel fully confident.
No, but Mr. De, my specific question is, aren't various political parties playing out their political positions and the farmer is being left behind because many of the suggestions proposed by the BJP with some changes were actually suggested by the UPA in the past?
Yeah, so the political party game or what's being played out is a separate parallel issue. Okay. And of course, politics is a part of it. I mean, laws are passed in parliament. The BJP is a political party. It's a political process. But if you look at this particular agitation, Vishnu, it is the farmers who have led it. They have called the shots. They have said exactly what they want. They have been clear and they've been asking independently to be heard. So today, if we want a solution, and they are the ones sitting there, it's not political parties that are sitting there. Political parties may be supporting them or opposing them. Even the BJP today saying that political parties are leading the farmers or misleading the farmers is a very foolish stand to take because they have to negotiate with the farmers. That's the final bottom line. And the farmers are very clear. They are intelligent. They know what they want. They know what they had. This is a law that existed. This is a situation that existed. They're wanting to go back to status quo, even though there were problems with that status quo. So I think that the government keeping on calling people names, keeping on saying that the farmers are being misled is going to not be productive at all. Because eventually they have to convince those farmers who are sitting there on those borders. They wouldn't even talk to them. Then they made their way here
But they're talking right now.
Right, they're talking. So that
I agree that they needed to have been spoken to much more in the past beyond the few rounds of talks. Many of them are old and it's cold outside.
But to say there is a political discourse going on, but it's in parallel. Actually, the core of that discourse is the discussion between the government and the farmers' groups.
That's happening now.
Yeah, exactly. And in that, if the farmers continue to say, we do not agree with the nitty-gritty of what you want to change, we don't trust it, that is something that the government is going to have to come to terms with. And stepping back, it's not a question of being held hostage. Okay. I think all these terms have to be left aside. And the government has, if it's convinced it's willing to do all those things, it should go all the way to do it as much as it can and come back to the drawing board, take the farmers on board to look at reforms in a way that farmers agree with it.
Atishi, what was the issue with Arvind Kejriwal today? Was he blocked from going towards the farmers who were protesting? Or was this, some sort of an agitation done by the Aam Aadmi Party as has been alleged?
So, Vishnu, this started yesterday after Delhi's Chief Minister, Mr. Arvind Kejriwal, went to the Singhu border yesterday to show his solidarity with the farmers, as well as to inspect the various arrangements that have been done by the Delhi government, as well as arrangements that have been done there in a voluntary capacity by Aam Aadmi Party. And since the time he has come back, he has been held under virtual house arrest, where not only has he been not allowed out of his house, but no one has been allowed to come and meet him, including yesterday when an MLA of Model Town, Mr. Akhilesh Pati Tripathi, was coming in for an official meeting. He was actually dragged away by the police. 4 policemen dragged him away, hit him by batons. Today as well, it was said that legislators can enter after showing their ID card, but only 2 people with them can enter. Who is the police to decide who Arvind Kejriwal can meet, how many people he can meet? He's the elected Chief Minister of Delhi.
So what the BJP actually said, Atishi,
in light of the Bharat...
Atishi, what the BJP said is that there are camera people outside Arvind Kejriwal's house right now, and this was a few hours back, they held a press conference. If Arvind Kejriwal is not allowed to leave, we defy him to come outside and face all those camera people outside his house. He'll be allowed, no one is stopping him. I mean, so in other words,
I have a simple question, Vishnu. Why was his personal staff not allowed to enter today? Why was Mr. Akhilesh Pati Tripathi not allowed to enter today? Why were the 50, 100 people who were outside his CM office not allowed to enter? And the police was deciding which 2 or 3 people could actually enter. Now, the only explanation for this is that given the fact that there was a Bharat Bandh, there was an assumption by the BJP that Arvind Kejriwal would again go to the Singhu border today to show his solidarity with the farmers. And I had said so in the morning itself. I had tweeted the fact that by the evening, by the time the Bharat Bandh comes to an end, much of this house arrest type scenario of people not being allowed to enter or him not being allowed to exit would be over and done with.
All right, 1 second.
And please,
one second, Atishi.
One simple thing, Vishnu.
Yeah. Quickly, Atishi.
One simple thing. There are so-called 10 people from the BJP protesting outside the Chief Minister's residence. There's hundreds of policemen in riot gear. They can hold back 300-400 Aam Aadmi Party volunteers, MLAs and leaders, but they cannot remove 10 people from the gate of the Chief Minister's residence. Please tell me, Vishnu, you have been covering news and politics for over a decade now. Have you ever seen the police so helpless that they cannot remove 10 people?
So, Rajat, why don't you answer that? I think the bottom line over here is if there is an elected representative who wants to show his solidarity with whoever it is that he wants to show his solidarity with, why is the police, which comes under the Home Ministry, stopping him?
See, the Delhi police what I have read about their statement is that they did not stop him. Now it is up to the Delhi police and their spokespersons to come out and explain what exactly happened and why is Arvind Kejriwal feeling what he's feeling, that he's been put under house arrest. But as a common, observer, we all know that drama and Aam Aadmi Party go hand in hand. So let us stop at that. We are actually discussing a very serious issue. Today, a Bharat Bandh was called. And what I fail to understand is that in this 21st century, what does Bandh actually achieve? What does it achieve for the farmers? And how does it actually harm the laborers, the daily wagers, and all of those whose lives get impacted? I want to ask these farmer unions and the political parties who tend to sponsor them and support them in carrying out Bharat Bandh logistically, what do you stand and gain out of this when the talks are actually going on? Okay. That should be discussed today.
Maheshwar Grewal, would you like to answer that? What is being achieved over here? Elderly farmers, their families are out there in the cold, 13 days on now. Delhiites are suffering, other areas, trains have been blocked in some places, road transportation, essential supplies are being affected. What does this dharna actually achieve if talks are happening? And they have been happening.
Vishnuji, I fail to understand why they are saying so. The government has given a deaf ear to the demands of the farmers. In Punjab, they were for last 60 days on the tracks, railway stations, on the roads, and on the toll plazas. But the government of India never bothered itself to know what is going on. At that time, the Punjab government and the government of India, they were playing a friendly match. They want to shift responsibility on one or other. Ultimately, when it came to Delhi, the farmers announced much before their visit to Delhi that on 26th and 27th of November, they will march to Delhi. Had government of India been even a little serious about their demands and interested in solving the situation, they could have called the leaders before they start for their march and held a meetings. Now the Bandh is only the most peaceful one. Today I read in some paper that it may be the only exception in the world that in a pandemic like Corona, it is such a peaceful protest for last 2 months.
And thank heavens for that.
The Bandh was so
and thank
peaceful.
Heavens for that. Yes.
I don't know about any other place, but I must say that in Punjab it was voluntarily, it was peaceful. Not even a single shop was open, not even a single factory was. In a democratic setup, it is these type of protests are the only way to convey to the government that please listen, don't sleep, kumbh kar neend.
Okay,
and
1 second, sir. Supriya, you have a point to make.
grievances.
A quick one before I go back to Nikhil there. Yes, Supriya.
No, sure. All I will say is that in a democracy, if we start questioning the right to protest, then we are really headed a very dark alley. And I think one of the key people in this government have today just said that India has too much democracy. Well, sir, whether you like it or not, we are going to give it our all to protect this democracy. And nobody is sponsoring these farmers. It is their movement. They called for a bandh. We are in solidarity with them. So let us stop defaming the farmers to begin with. There is no politics there. Let's keep them away from this, please.
All right, but you certainly seem to endorse their cause, and it is very much
Absolutely.
a political issue as
and
well.
Why not?
It is very much a political issue. It's the
not?
issue of
I mean,
farmers
it
is
is a
a
political
bedrock
issue.
of politics in Punjab and Haryana.
Of course, and we need to stand with India's farmers.
Right.
And we are given
So
that
to
right
say that
by
you
the
aren't
Constitution and democracy.
on one side or the other of the farmers' debate is inaccurate, Supriya. You're very much a part of that debate, as are all political parties.
Absolutely we are, but I think somebody used the word, we are sponsoring the farmers. Nobody is doing that. We are in solidarity with them.
Oh, yeah.
We need to
Yes,
be
there
very
have been
careful about the
allegations
words we
that
choose
political
for
parties
India's farmers.
have been driving them in a particular way. Yes, I see your response to that. Nikhil Dev, what is the bottom line over here? Because there are a couple of other issues which farmers are also concerned about. There's the issue of stubble burning that affects millions across North India. And farmers say that that is something they want to continue because there is no option. Now, that is unacceptable by any means for millions of people, including the farmers themselves. Secondly, amendments to the Electricity Act. They want certain changes over there. Is that something that is debatable? Or does this ultimately, the other one is courts, right? They want greater access to courts if things are to go wrong. That seems to be a low-hanging fruit. And then, of course, there is MSP. So other than MSP, are farmers likely to bend on any of the other issues?
Yeah, so Vishnu, that's the other thing. Everyone has been talking about MSP, but there are actually 3 laws. And the other 2 laws concern issues of how much you can store, actually hoard, because the Essential Commodities Act has a special role in a country like India. I know people say that liberalization means you shouldn't have anything like an Essential Commodities Act. But the fact is, in India, we have all seen food security is extremely important. We have seen hoarding that has taken place in many places. People like us have lived in Rajasthan, where droughts have only been saved because people have been able to distribute food. And our problem is not one of not enough production, it's problem of enough distribution. So actually, a lot in this MSP also has to do with maintaining India's food security, keeping those stocks and distributing them through the PDS. That's why it's a holistic thing. So does it matter about contract farming and issues and courts, therefore, because you cannot have laws which these days you have that bureaucrats are going to sort out everything, because we know the kind of pressure that's put even on courts, but on bureaucracy even much more. The political executive makes it function, and there is a corporate nexus with the political executive. So it's riddled with issues, and that's why actually, Vishnu, the bottom line, you ask, what is it? The bottom line is that in the amendments that the government is proposing, it will have to convince the farmers' groups that in the fine print, in the mechanics of how these laws are going to work, you can say we are guaranteeing MSP, but the farmers know whether that MSP can be guaranteed or not. It's taken many, many years to make a system work somewhat. So it is something that farmers will only accept when they have a sense of confidence that at least as much as they had before, they will go back with.
All right. Well, we are also joined by Naresh Sirohi, National Vice President of the BJP's Kisan Morcha. Naresh ji, what is the bottom line as far as the government is concerned? Are you willing to repeal the laws, or do you believe that the laws will remain and only amendments will be made?
मेरा मानना ये है कि इसमें जो हम कानूनों को वापस लेने की बात कर रहे हैं, उन कानूनों में बहुत जो सुधार होने चाहिए, जिसमें किसानों को सुरक्षा कवच दिया जाना चाहिए, ऐसा अपने को करना चाहिए। अगर किसानों को जहां जहां भी उन्होंने उस पे उंगली उठाई है कि जहां से किसानों के अधिकार और देश की कृषि पद्धति प्रभावित हो सकती है, हमको मिल बैठकर उसको सुलझाना चाहिए। मेरा ये मानना है, क्योंकि मैं भी एक किसान हूं और किसान आंदोलनकारी रहा हूं, तो इसलिए इसमें कहीं समझौता होना नहीं चाहिए। क्योंकि दुनिया में जो कानून है वो दूसरे देशों के लिए अच्छे हो सकते हैं, लेकिन भारत की परिस्थितियों के हिसाब से उन कानूनों में सुधार होने की गुंजाइश है, उसको होना चाहिए। हमने भी पार्टी से और कृषि मंत्री जी से बात करके इस बात को कहा है कि इसमें सुधार की जहां गुंजाइश है उसमें करना चाहिए। जहां तक एमएसपी की बात है, ये आज का आंदोलन नहीं है।
नहीं, पर नरेश जी, कानूनों को रिपील वापस लेना चाहिए या सिर्फ अमेंड करना चाहिए?
नहीं, वापस तो मुझे नहीं लगता है कि वापस।
हाँ, तो बॉटम लाइन यही है ना, अमेंडमेंट लाने की बातचीत जो चल रही है अब, वो शायद किसान लोग मानते हैं, पर उनको कहना है कि ये इन कानूनों को रिपील करना चाहिए। बॉटम लाइन उनका यही है, उनको और कुछ नहीं चाहिए, और कुछ मंजूर नहीं।
किसान संगठनों का बॉटम लाइन यही है, लेकिन मेरा मानना ये है कि देश में जो कृषि की अर्थव्यवस्था है उसमें खाली किसान नहीं है, किसान के अलावा जो बड़ा कृषि का व्यापार करने वाला कॉर्पोरेट सेक्टर भी है, तो जो फूड प्रोसेसिंग इंडस्ट्री भी है, और जो खुदरा व्यापार है, रिटेल के लोग भी हैं। तो ये जो तीनों कानून हैं, ये देश के अर्थव्यवस्था से जुड़े हर पहलू को एड्रेस कर रहे हैं।
All right. Okay, I take your point, Mr. Sirohi. You joined us a bit late on the program. That it cannot be pulled out altogether. I'd like to thank you all very much for joining us. Still no word on whether there is any progress in these talks being held in the office at the residence of the Home Minister right now.